For more of this kind of content, you can subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment. It had been a typical day for Mark Grayson, a janitor working aboard the galactic freighter Aura. The ship traveled between planets, transporting cargo for the galactic conglomerate, but for Mark, it was just a job. The work was monotonous, cleaning up after wealthy travelers and ensuring the ship's pristine appearance. He had no real aspirations of grandeur. His world was small, and he was content with that. After all, what could a janitor like him expect from life in the vastness of the galaxy? Mark didn't mind the work, but he often found himself dreaming of something more. He wasn't blind to the way the crew and passengers looked at him. To them, he was invisible. The officers wore their uniforms with pride, the passengers flaunted their riches, and Mark? He was just a lowly janitor, scrubbing floors and cleaning toilets. But that all changed the day the ship docked at an unknown planet, one that had not been on the itinerary. No one knew why they had arrived, but the crew had been informed that they were to remain docked while a special diplomatic envoy arrived. Mark, being one of the few who wasn't involved in the high-profile events, was tasked with ensuring the ship remained in immaculate condition. The ship's corridors were silent as Mark worked. He had just finished sweeping the halls of the main deck when the announcement came over the intercom, a voice he didn't recognize. "All crew members, please remain in your stations. Diplomatic guests are boarding. Security measures are being heightened. Stand by." A few minutes later, Mark's curiosity got the better of him. He decided to take a small break, hoping to catch a glimpse of what was going on. He walked quietly down the hallway toward the observation bay. As he rounded a corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. The door to the observation bay was ajar, and inside stood a group of alien dignitaries, their faces obscured by their cloaks. But one of them stood apart from the rest. An alien queen, regal and powerful, her long silvery hair cascading over her armored body. She was taller than the others, her presence commanding the room. Mark had seen many species throughout his travels, but nothing prepared him for the sight of this alien queen. Her skin was a deep shade of purple, with gold markings that glimmered across her face and arms. Her eyes, golden and piercing, held an intensity that Mark could feel even from this distance. The queen's presence had an air of authority and grace that was undeniable. It was clear that she was no ordinary ruler, and something about her pulled Mark in. He wasn't sure why, but he found himself standing there, unnoticed, watching the group in awe. Suddenly, one of the guards turned and noticed Mark standing at the entrance. He was immediately ushered in by two armored soldiers. "You, janitor," the guard snapped. "The queen wishes to speak with you." Before Mark could protest, he was escorted to the queen's side, standing in front of her, feeling like an insect beneath her gaze. He tried to remain calm, but his heart raced. What had he done to deserve such attention? The queen's eyes narrowed as she regarded him. "You are the janitor, yes?" she asked, her voice smooth and melodic, yet with an edge of authority. "Yes, your majesty," Mark replied, bowing his head, unsure of what was happening. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. "I do," Mark stammered. "You are Queen Seraphina of the Arathian Empire?" The queen's lips curled into a slight smile. "Impressive. Few humans know of me, let alone my empire." "I've read about your empire, your majesty," Mark replied, still struggling to understand why he was being addressed by her. "But I don't understand. Why have you called for me?" Seraphina stepped closer, her golden eyes locking with his. Mark felt his breath catch in his chest. Her gaze was intoxicating, as if she could peer into his very soul. "I have been seeking a companion," she said softly, "someone who can help me in a matter of great importance. Someone who is not influenced by the politics of my court. Someone who can stand by my side, untainted by ambition." Mark didn't know what to say. A janitor, a mere servant, standing by the queen's side. "Want me?" he asked incredulously. Seraphina nodded, her expression unwavering. "Yes. You are unimportant to everyone else. You are free of the constraints that bind others. I need someone like you." Mark couldn't believe what he was hearing. Was this some kind of joke? He had spent his entire life being overlooked and underestimated, and now, the queen of an entire empire was asking him to be her companion. "I don't know what to say," Mark muttered, still processing the situation. "You do not need to say anything," she replied. "Only understand that I choose you." Over the next few weeks, Mark found himself caught up in a whirlwind of events he had never imagined. The queen, Seraphina, kept her promise and brought him into her inner circle. She had chosen him not for his status, but because he had been overlooked by everyone else, and in that, she found a unique quality, honesty, and independence from the ambitions that clouded the minds of her court. At first, Mark struggled to adapt. He was constantly surrounded by the queen's advisors and the political complexities of the Arathian Empire. But Seraphina treated him with respect, showing him the intricacies of her rule and confiding in him matters of great importance. "I need someone who can speak plainly, who is not influenced by court politics," she explained one evening. "Too many of those around me seek power, but you, Mark, see things as they truly are." As they spent more time together, Mark began to understand the weight of Seraphina's words. The empire was in turmoil, beset by factions and rebellions, and Seraphina was struggling to maintain her grip on power. The galaxy had once been her empire's to command, but now it was fracturing, and enemies surrounded her. One night, after a particularly tense meeting with her generals, Seraphina walked out into the gardens, her thoughts heavy. Mark followed her quietly. "Are you all right, Your Majesty?" he asked gently. She looked at him, her expression softening for the first time. "I do not know who I can trust anymore, Mark. Everyone has an agenda. I cannot let my empire fall, but I feel so alone." Mark stepped closer to her, his heart racing. Despite the vast differences in their worlds, despite the fact that he was just a janitor and she was a queen, he felt a connection to her. It was not born from ambition or power. It was something simpler. It was honesty, understanding, and an unspoken bond that neither of them could deny. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "you are not alone." "Not anymore." For the first time, Seraphina allowed herself to smile, a soft and genuine smile that reached her eyes. As the months passed, Mark and Seraphina's bond grew stronger. She came to rely on his advice more and more, valuing his perspectives and his clear-headedness. When the empire faced a critical crisis, a rebellion brewing on one of their outer colonies, Mark found himself standing by her side, offering a solution that no one else had thought of. It was a solution that would unite the people of the colony with the empire, bringing peace and stability. Seraphina looked at him with admiration. "You are more than just a janitor, Mark. You are a leader in your own right." One evening, after a victory had been won and the empire had been saved from certain collapse, Mark found himself standing before Seraphina once again, this time in the grand hall of her palace. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and something more. "I would like you to stay by my side," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Not just as my advisor, not just as a companion, but as my equal. I do not wish to rule alone anymore." Mark's heart swelled with emotion. He had never imagined this day would come, but here it was. He, the janitor, had become the chosen companion of an alien queen. "I would be honored, Your Majesty," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Seraphina smiled, her eyes gleaming with pride. "Then let us rule together, Mark. Let us bring peace to this empire, together." In the years that followed, Mark and Seraphina worked side by side, rebuilding the Arathian Empire. The people saw them as a united force, a pair bound by love, respect, and loyalty. And though Mark had started as a humble janitor, he became known throughout the galaxy as the companion of the Queen, a man who had risen not through wealth or power, but through compassion, integrity, and a willingness to see the world as it truly was. Together, they forged a new future for the galaxy, one built not on power, but on trust and equality.